Another piece of the fairy tale here is that we need to eat these, you mentioned 5 a day, to get our fiber. We did talk about this last time, but I want to go deep into fiber and bust that myth.
Okay, where do you want to go? I mean, do you like fiber? I should ask you this. Do you rate fiber? Am I going into dodgy territory here, or?
I'm low carb keto. I'm not somebody that avoids fiber, but I don't go seeking it.
Okay, so as you say, we went into it last time. What myths do we still have to bust on fiber?
Well, let's just give a 101. We're told we want to eat diversity when it comes to plants, get a lot of fiber, get fiber from different plants. You mentioned Zoe before, not you, the other Zoe.
The
And they're
Zoe
big
app.
on this. So talk about where we went wrong there.
We're back to kind of the dietary guidelines. Where did we go wrong? Everywhere. We didn't get anything right. It's all wrong. I mean, the fiber myth is it's one of those dragons that just won't slay. You know, you're stabbing it and chopping its head off and chopping its legs off, and it just keeps coming back for more. And it's just, okay, so let's do carbohydrate 101, because that's going to get us into fiber. And I think we need to do this because it also gets the point across that when we're talking about carbohydrate, we're talking about sugar. And people really need to land that point, because there's this idea that carbohydrate is good and sugar is bad, and yet carbohydrate is just sugar. So carbohydrate 101. We have 3 what we call monosaccharides. Mono meaning one, saccharide meaning sugar. So they're single sugars, and they are glucose, fructose, and galactose. Then we have 3 what we call disaccharides, 2 sugars. So we have sucrose, lactose, and maltose. And sucrose, that's the one that we're most familiar with. That's the table sugar, white packet of table sugar in the coffee shop. And sucrose is 1 molecule of fructose and 1 molecule of glucose. Lactose, for interest, is glucose and galactose. Maltose is 2 units of glucose. So all of them have got glucose in. So all of those disaccharides are dumping glucose into the body. And of course, we know glucose goes into the bloodstream. And we should only ever have 4 grams of glucose in the bloodstream at any one time. The minute we put more than that in, the pancreas is called upon to attach itself to the glucose. Insulin attaches itself, takes it out of the bloodstream, because the body saw that the glucose was too high. We were in a crisis situation. So you've seen immediately that all of those building blocks of 2 sugars are putting glucose into the bloodstream and giving the body a crisis situation where it has to start getting that glucose out of the bloodstream. So immediately you should be thinking not just sugar, 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 but I'm chucking stuff into the body that the body is then going to have to deal with because it sees it as a bad thing. Now we're getting close to fiber, because we move on to polysaccharides, many sugars. And these divide into 2 categories. So you've got many sugars of the digestible kind, which we know as glycogen in humans and starch in plants. And then we've got many sugars of the indigestible kind, and that is fiber. Fiber is literally many sugars of the indigestible kind. So the first thing that I want to say to people is, why would people be telling me to consume many sugars that I can't digest, let alone to the tune of 30 grams of this many sugars that I can't digest every single day? Why would that be happening?
I want to come back to fiber before we part ways. We quickly glazed over it, and it's obvious you're not a fan, but I want to give some pushback in different areas and get your opinion where other people might say it's a necessity. First one being the microbiome. Okay, we don't need fiber, but what about our microbiome taking that fiber, processing it, making short-chain fatty acids that in turn benefit us?
It still doesn't need fiber. So what your microbiome needs is great parents, natural childbirth, breastfeeding, no antibiotics as a child unless your life depends on it. Ideally, no antibiotics in your lifetime unless your life depends on it. Don't eat processed food, because that's going to feed the bad guys. And then it's all about balance in the gut flora. If you remember that Super Size Me guy who just ate McDonald's for a month, he managed to trash his whole health system in that time. So don't eat the bad stuff. We haven't mentioned fiber or vegetables, and we've mentioned a lot of things. Then do eat the good stuff. and we still don't need fiber. So we can get that from blue cheese, from natural live yogurt. Kefir is a particularly fantastic thing to eat for your gut health. Fermented foods, pickled foods, and people go, pickle, that's a vegetable. Yeah, but it's not that it's a vegetable, it's that it's pickled. It's that you're getting in the fermented aspect of the intake. And that's what makes for a great microbiome. So there is still no need for fiber or vegetables, which, remember, are things that you can't digest that are actually many sugars. So we don't need them.
The classic story, again, I said this before, is to eat a diverse range of fruits and vegetables, get a whole bunch of fiber, and the goal there is to have a diverse microbiome. What do you think about that goal?
Yeah.
It's obviously you don't think fiber's what we need to get there, but do you think we even have the goal correct?
That's a really interesting question, and it's another one on the homework list, because it is an important one to look at. There is this assumption out there that the more diverse your gut bacteria, the better. But I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's not just the more of the good guys that you've got, the better. I mean, I'm pretty sure having something like Candida albicans, which I was writing about 21 years ago, way ahead of all this gut flora stuff, it's not good having that in there. It's certainly not good having that out of balance in there, not being kept in check by the good guys like the lactobacillus and acidophilus and all that kind of thing. That's definitely not good. But I know that the Zoë company over here, they've actually got a product in some of the posh supermarkets where you can buy a sachet, which again just doesn't feel that natural, but it's sort of, here's your 30 plants for your diversity, for your microbiome. And I've started looking into this, so it is going to be a Monday note. And there's one paper that they've done that they're relying on to say, 30 plants is marvellous and it's going to be great for your microbiome. And there you go, there's your 30 plants. I'll make it easy for you. You don't have to go out and buy all those 30 plants. I'll just put it in some sachet that you can buy for $15 from, Windmill Whole Foods or whatever. And that's what they've come up with. But it's an inference, it's an assumption, it's still a hypothesis in my view. I am not yet convinced that diversity is the most important thing. And I'm definitely not convinced that you have to have the plants to get that diversity.
Okay, sticking on fiber. Another argument could be fiber helps me poop. Metamucil, this is something that's sold to people. Help keep them regular. Bring that in.
So we're now talking about waste. And there's no other area of life where I can think of that waste is actually a good thing. So when I have to get rid of my garbage and the people come around to collect it each week, the less I can produce, the better. If I'm working in the kitchen or something, the less waste I can produce, the better. The more I can use all the food I buy each week, all the ingredients, etc. When did waste ever become a good thing? And that's basically all it is. Remember, it's sugars that we can't digest. So it's got to come out of the other end somehow because we can't digest it. So what else is it going to do? The body's not able to strip it and take out nutrients or whatever because we just can't digest it. So it's just got to pass through the system. So yes, if you have a massive amount of fiber, you are going to have more to get rid of the next day. And if you're the kind of person that thinks, I've had a big poop, I feel really good about that. Okay, knock yourself out. You had to put more in to get more out. But you know what? It would have been so much better if you put less in and got less out because you've just generally taxed your body less. Now, we went for a meal with friends. Andy and I don't eat much fiber. And we went for a meal with friends recently and it was delicious and it looked beautiful. They'd done like a sort of slab of beef on a bed of mixed beans. So there were kidney beans and broad beans and other beans that I didn't even recognise, and sweet corn. There was like a whole tin of sweet corn in there, and there were raw red onion. There were some bits of avocado. I can't even remember what else. It was just so much fibre, and there was so much of it. And it was very tasty because it was in this sort of vinaigrette dressing. It had the beef juices on it. It was really tasty. So we're like, okay, we'll be polite here. We'll eat it. It was like 3 days before we got over that. We were in so much discomfort. It's just like, okay, we've got to get rid of all of that because we got some nutrients from it. It wasn't all fibre. It's not like we ate fibre gel. But the fibre bit was the bit that we couldn't digest, and they were all very fibrous ingredients. And we were in trouble for a few days. It reminded me of a study that I often cite, 2012 study by Ho et al. And it was about stopping fibre and the impact that that then has on chronic irritable bowel conditions. And these were really extreme. There's 63 people with really debilitating constipation, diarrhea, stomach pain, to the point that they couldn't function, they couldn't go to work and all the rest of it. And they took them off fibre for a few weeks, and literally every complaint that they had cleared up. And then the end of the study was basically, do you want to go back to eating fibre? And anyone who goes back to eating fibre, having got rid of all of that discomfort, they're mad, because why would you do that? I think if you've got any bowel problem whatsoever, it's not advice, but a suggestion, try taking fibre out of your diet and just see if that helps, because I can't see that it won't. It's not only not good for us, I think it's causing a lot of harm.
And to me, this reminds me of the diversity piece, where I feel like a lot of people, the goal is to have those big poops every day. We got to look at these goals and make sure we're actually aiming for the right thing, because that's going to determine the tactics, in this case, to jam in as much fiber as we can to have these big poops.
Yeah, and everything in nutrition, I mean, you look at the ancestral guys and the Weston Price Foundation, we've got roots in evolution. Why should we not eat less, do more? Because the body has only got to where we have. We're only here because we've managed to do the opposite. So if you look at big poop in that context, when we were tribes and when we lived in settlements, you couldn't go and do your big poop within the camp, because that would be very unsociable. It would also be dangerous, because you're attracting wild animals in with the smell and with the nutrients that they could get from your poop. So you're attracting those actually into the camp. So you've got to go outside the camp. Well, first of all, you're taking a risk if you're going outside the camp on your own, because you can get picked off by a wild animal. But you're still giving signals around the camp. Hey, wild animals, humans over here with food, and wolves, whatever animals would have been around at the time. You're putting the tribe at risk. So big waste is not good. If you've got some fixation on having a big poo every morning, I think you might want to go and talk to a psychotherapist or something, actually, because there's no nutritional benefit going on.
What do you think about this idea of, I want to take in fiber to gently scrape against and clean out my intestines?
If the I know someone who says this, and it's someone I've got a lot of respect for, but I don't respect this particular arm of their general argument. There's this sort of idea that fibre acts as some little sort of scrubby, I think was the word used, little scrubby in the intestines. I'm pretty sure my intestines should not be having little scrubbies going on, and that's probably going to cause irritable bowel syndrome or cause some complications in some way. I just think the body's been really well designed. It'll keep pH perfect, it will keep blood pressure perfect if we treat it with respect. It will keep blood glucose perfect if we treat it with respect. It repairs things internally. Organs can repair themselves, some of them. I mean, it's just the most incredible thing. If we needed little scrubbies in the intestine, I am really sure that the body would have them in some way. The fact that it doesn't tells me that we don't need them. Little scrubbies is like another word for abrasion. I don't think we should be doing abrasive stuff internally. We've got to respect the body and not block pathways and not do stuff that it's not designed to do. Just try to work with it rather than fighting it the whole time.
Our poor bodies, all these things we're doing and causing it to have to react.
Yeah, big time. I mean, they're amazing to us, given what we do to them. The couch potato who's getting no exercise, maybe smoking, maybe drinking too much, maybe eating tons of processed food, carrying a body weight of 3 to 4 times what the body wanted to cope with. They're amazing that, they're still functioning at any kind of level. And that if the person then really tries to do the right thing, to say, okay, enough is enough, I'm stopping smoking, I'm stopping drinking, I'm eating real food, I'm going to stop being sedentary, I'm going to lose that weight, I'm going to take back charge of my health. I mean, you see it, don't you, on some Instagram accounts or whatever, where they sort of shorten a year's program into a minute or something, and they take somebody's just like, enough is enough. And you see them at the beginning, then you see them at the end, and it's like, whoa, that's just incredible. That's incredible. The body didn't give up on that person in the kind of way that the person gave up on their own body. So we should respect it a lot more.
All right, so you're not a fan of the scrubbies. By the sounds of it, you wouldn't be a fan of colonics.
No.
Talk about those.
Well, you're taking out the good guys at the same as taking out the bad guys. And it takes a lot to get the good guys there. I mean, go back to what I said, have great parents, be ideally born naturally, ideally be breastfed. I do know there are complications, but this is all the ideal. Eat good food as a child, eat good food as an adult. Your microbiome should have been built up over your whole lifetime and be a sort of powerhouse within your body. I mean, Natasha Campbell McBride, double PhD, will call it, your second brain in your body is your gut health. And then you go and trash it with a colonic. And for what? Because stuff comes out and maybe you feel lighter, maybe you get on the scale and you actually are lighter. It's bonkers. It's bonkers. Don't go doing that. It's really not what the body wants you to be doing. Don't go doing that kind of stuff. Stop it.
All right, we're going to end the fiber talk on this. Last piece of pushback I could think of is being satiated by it. You hear this talk of eat fiber, you're going to feel full. Bring that in.
Okay, so when we had that fiber meal recently, we felt full, but not in a good way. We felt bloated. We felt quite uncomfortable. Normally I can wear the same clothes from morning till night. Doesn't matter what I eat in my normal diet. No belt is going to get tight. No jeans are going to get uncomfortable. I'm not making myself bloat. My food is being handled in a normal kind of process. We shouldn't be bloating and feeling, fat after a meal and that kind of thing. We did feel full, but not in a good way. Now, when you eat, bearing in mind that fiber is just a subset of carbohydrate, you might feel full when you've just had some carbohydrate, but it is so short-lived, not least because one of the things it's going to do is muck up your blood glucose level because you're at that 4 grams, that perfect 4 grams of glucose in your bloodstream. You eat an apple, let's say, you've chucked in 20 grams of sugar into your body. Let's say 11 were fructose, 9 were glucose. You've still put in 2 and a bit times the glucose that your body wanted in the bloodstream, and the body then has to get it out. So would your body then exactly get it right and get it right back to that perfect 4 to 5 gram kind of level? No, maybe not. And particularly over time, it gets less good at that. So quite often people find that when they have a high sugar carbohydrate, which that apple is, their blood glucose level will spike. If you wear a glucose monitor, not even as a diabetic, but just for interest, continuous glucose monitor, you'll see it spike. And then the glucose level will go down. And observe it, because quite often it'll go down below where it was before you ate the apple. And then you've got the risk of the body saying, I'm heading a little bit towards that low blood glucose level now. I need to be getting some more glucose in. And if you've got your body used to fueling on carbohydrates, because remember, it can fuel on carbohydrates or it can fuel on fat, and that's either dietary fat or body fat, or of course it can fuel on ketones. If you've got your body used to that, then it's just going to demand more carbohydrate. So you have a biscuit, you're not going to be full for very long. Have some porridge, you're not going to be full for very long. If you have porridge with full fat milk, it will be the full fat milk that will make you feel satiated. So what is going to make you feel satiated? Real food with fat and protein. So I say to people sometimes, if you want to do a test and you normally get a proper Starbucks or coffee or whatever on the way into work with proper milk, one day try and ask for the skinny latte instead and just see how much sooner you get hungry, because fat and protein makes you satiated. Carbohydrate is a very, very short-lived, fake feeling of being full and not a very comfortable, healthy way of feeling full.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
The demonization of fat, the demonization of saturated fat, the demonization of cholesterol, all these things that we got wrong have just then been the bedrock of everything else that's gone wrong since. Fiber is literally many sugars of the indigestible kind.